Welcome to Ear Biscuits, I'm Rhett.
And I'm Link. Today at the round table of dim lighting, we asked the question, what if the day was 12 hours longer? What would we do with ourselves? What would we do with our lives? What does that mean about, how could that even happen? And if scientifically it were possible.
Oh, it is.
If geophysically it were possible, how would that change our lives and culture? Well, I don't know how far reaching this conversation will go.
It could go anywhere.
But we're hovering around, it may go to, it's about time, my friend. Maybe time management, maybe about desires and things we never get to, who knows? Well, I actually don't know where we're going with this.
And that's what's exciting. The question came from another question that we got on Twitter, which I'm not even gonna talk about now because we'll talk about that in a second. A question from a mythical beast that made us think of this question. But before we get into that, I feel it appropriate to talk to you about an experience I had last evening. That's how I'm gonna start talking. You know, one of the things, you notice like when you watch old movies, or when you like look at the writings of people who lived like 100 years ago.
Well, their days were 36 hours.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
They just spoken better. You know what I'm saying? The way I wish to recall a tale of my last eve. Like how did their brains work like that?
I think
we're so just lazy in the way we speak.
I actually think it's more of just bad scripting. It's like what they properized things when they scripted it
have that you ever
did
read,
not capture.
No, have you ever just read a letter?
No, I have not read.
Okay, all right, well that explains a lot.
The way they wrote letters is not the way that they spoke. Because letters were an art form. They were, it was a crafted thing that you sat there and like, it was very eloquent. You know, you didn't have casual conversation. Well, like that way with like your,
I believe they did.
Your aunt.
I believe they talked the way they talked on the Little House on the Prairie. That's how everyone spoke. And I miss those days, even though I was not even alive during that.
I don't know that I've ever watched an episode of that.
But I want to talk to you about a piece of furniture that I attempted to put together. And I know this
in the previous eve?
Yeah, last eve, my friend Neil.
Piece of furniture.
Yes, I happened.
Are we about to have an IKEA conversation? I
happened upon a parcel of furniture.
A parcel?
A parcel.
That's not a word.
A morsel.
Never was a word. It's part of a cookie.
A morsel of furniture. No, this is not IKEA. It could have been, but it wasn't. So
I don't do that anymore. Not that I don't like IKEA.
I haven't put together anything in quite some time. In fact,
I'm definitely beyond it.
No, some of the most simple repairs. Now
it's like I've had one near-death experience. I'm not gonna elect to have another one. It's kind of what it's like.
You know, like in the early days of home ownership, and then in like the early days of, right after we got married, we bought a house. Because buying a house in North Carolina was somewhat easier than buying a house in in California. And after we bought that house, after a couple of years, we moved into another house and started renting out the original house, and I found myself a landlord. And at that point, I was doing, I had been kind of told by people who did this, that the only way you can make money off this is to do all the repairs yourself. So I learned how to sheet rock walls and to do plumbing repairs, and I actually became relatively handy. For like a few years, I was relatively handy. Could do some electrical work.
Because your time wasn't worth squat.
Exactly.
To anyone else besides you. I mean, yeah, I would try to fix my truck. I would try to.
Oh yeah, I tried to fix the Intrepid one time.
I did all types of stuff, yeah.
I got the Haynes manual, is that what it was? The Haynes auto manual that showed you how to fix things?
Tells you how to fix everything, but it's never as simple as
I tried to change the timing belt on a Dodge Intrepid and almost lost a limb.
I dropped I opened up the top of the engine, I guess just to put oil in there, but I was trying to do something else, and I dropped a huge screw in there. Inside of the engine block.
You're the shakiest man I know under 75 years old. You doing mechanical work seems like the worst idea ever.
This is, I remember, I think I told this story in like Chia Lincoln or something, but I panicked at that moment and I went to the advanced auto and I found this like telescoping rod that had a little magnet on the end of it. And here I am shoving this thing like a fishing pole down into my engine block, trying to fish out in the middle of like all the oil.
That's how you fish, you stick the pole in the water?
Yeah.
We can talk about that later as well.
Trying to get the magnet to hook onto something and I never did. And then I was like, I just
screw it.
Put the cap on it and just drive it around.
Yeah.
And I guess it just settled to the bottom. It didn't get kinked up in
it. It works its way out.
So anyway, I thought we were past this. We know, it's better to invest in somebody else who knows how to do stuff.
Well, so at this point, I get
even building chest of drawers.
Very, very small repairs. Jesse is like, "Can you do this?" And I'm like, "Nope." But you know what, baby? You can call whoever you want to do it. I don't want to do it. You get somebody to do it. But it was my idea. So we've got right. If you walk out of our kitchen, you've got the basketball goal out there, and the kids are they're just animals. I mean, they're just. I feel like I could just have a herd of buffalo, and it would be similar to managing two boys.
Yeah, I was about to say. At least you don't have 3.
Yeah, but your kids are much more
like me,
organized, and they clean up after themselves.
Thank you.
I mean, your family's different, man. And so I think that there's not only is there dog crap all over this area and it's Shepard's job to clean it up and he doesn't do it and I end up doing it. We buy these basketballs and I buy the indoor-outdoor basketballs and I say, if you leave this basketball outside in the sun, it will very quickly disintegrate into a very non-pleasing sphere that no one wants to touch or play basketball with. It loses its bounce, it loses its grip, because the sun just eats these basketballs.
You might as well be talking to the ball itself.
Yeah, and so I said, Jesse, we've been in this house for 3.5 years, but I think we need some sort of sports bin. A sports bin.
Okay.
To put balls in. And I mean, it's gonna make me sound a little bit like a douche. I also recently replaced I have one little spot of grass.
Don't say it.
I have to talk about it.
The hot tub was a lot, man.
No, I have to talk
about it. We told him about the hot tub. We talked to him about
it's already well established
about the security cameras.
How much of a douche I am.
Oh, and you're going full.
Listen, I mean, I haven't bought a Lamborghini or anything. So I have a strip of grass that is literally 12 feet wide, and it's the only grass I have. There's no grass on my property. I just despise it. and I wanted to eliminate the last bit of grass. And I was like, hold on, you know what? I want to put in some artificial grass because you don't have to do anything to that. You just put some artificial grass in there. It looks great all the time. You don't have to water it. It's great for everybody.
You're on a slippery slope now.
And then I was like,
even though ironically it's flat, what you're talking about.
If I'm going to do this, might it be a putting green?
There it is.
I'm sorry, I went there. You
commissioned the construction of a putting green.
Here's what I'll say, and in
your yard.
You're right in thinking this. If you were to put 10 men in front of me, and I'm just gonna say men because I'm a man, it could be 10 people. If you were to put 10 people in front of me and you were to say, one of these people installed a putting green at their house. And then the second question is, can you pick one person that you would not like to be friends with? I'd be like, well, the only thing I got to go on is the guy who had a putting green installed at his house. I don't want to be friends with him.
Eliminated.
But I am that guy because I had that done. Now my dog is using it as a pooping green. And I'm trying to train her to do it in one of the cups, but she hasn't figured that out yet.
That's a bad idea.
Anyway, it actually is really easy to clean the poop up off of the artificial turf, and I got a little hose installed so I can like lift and squirt. A little lift and squirt, which is what she's doing out there.
Well, the petrified dog poop is kind of like, what are those
fossils?
Called? No, in golf terms, not a bunker, but like an obstruction.
Bogey?
What's an obstacle?
A hazard?
A hazard.
Okay. Yeah, but it's a movable. You can move a turd.
Or in putt-putt, it could be like bank shot.
I think if there's a turd on the green in golf, you can move it, but if there's a turd on the fairway, you can't move it.
Don't look around for help. We don't know.
I don't know the USGA rules. Anyway, what I do know is that because now we got a putter out there and we've got golf balls.
You know what you need?
A sports bin. Yeah. And so I'm
what a douche.
So I find myself
gotta have a sports bin.
Mr. Douche on Amazon looking at sports bins, and at this point, and I'm about to pull the trigger. I'm about to hit one click, buy it now.
Oh yeah.
Until my beautiful wife comes over my shoulder and she's like, "What are you looking at?" And I was like, "I was gonna get a sports bin for the outside." She was like, "Well, hold on."
She got an opinion on
Hold on a second. You're about to have just a random plastic bin that you're gonna put out inside my house that I just, I worry about every detail of this.
Yeah.
And I was like, "It's just a sports bin." She was like, "Well, I want."
Did it say sports bin on it, or was it ugly?
No, it was just a rectangular black sports bin. But
like lift the lid on it. You could also sit on it as a bench.
You probably wouldn't do that, but yeah, you could.
Okay.
But the one I was looking at was like $49.99. I mean, it was like great deal. It holds multiple basketballs.
Putter. And
I also bought myself an electric leaf blower to get the leaves off of the putting green before I douche out there. Before I go full douche mode and start putting out there, I have to get the leaves off.
You could attach your putter to the leaf blower and do them at the same time.
That's against the USGA rules. So anyway, she decides on the one, and I say, "You know what? I don't care. You buy it, have it as long as it's shipped here." And of course, she gets one that costs 4 times as much, $200, and it's like bigger and cooler, and it's got like a weaved sort of wicker design going on. I don't know.
Okay.
But I noticed that when I drive home last night, I get to the bottom of the stairs to walk up to my house, and they have left the delivery, and I see this package that I know is the sports bin. And what do I notice about the sports bin package?
It's a flat box.
It's flat. And if I recall correctly, a sports bin that's flat cannot hold a basketball. We don't live in that.
Hold a basketball, it cannot.
We don't live in math land. What was that book? That was all, everybody was 2D?
I don't read, I told you.
That's a great book, by the way. It's like called Mathland.
I know what you're talking about vaguely.
We had to read it in middle school. Everything was 2D. Anyway, we don't live in that. We live in a 3-dimensional world, depending on who you ask. And I knew that this was gonna be an evening of me putting something together. Mathland, maybe. So I take this thing up to the sports area. And we have a sports area now. I mean, there's a basketball goal and a putting green. I mean, you have fun for hours. And I open up the thing, and it's one of those things that has what I would call international instructions. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean wordless. It's just pictures, anybody can do it. And I begin putting this thing together with just the tools that it came with. And you've got a little Allen wrench that fits the very specific screw.
This was last night?
This was last night.
Gosh.
And 45 minutes into this process, I'm a little bit upset because the way you have to like turn these Allen wrenches, and it's up against this wicker thing, and I'm mad that we didn't get one that's pre-assembled and that I'm decided to do this. But once you just get your mind on something, you just have to do it sometimes.
Well, you don't want to know what I did last night.
Okay, well we'll find out in a second, I guess.
It's pretty easy.
Okay.
Not assemble a sports bin. That's it.
Well, you had a better night than me. So then I get the—
So you couldn't use like your cordless drill to replace the Allen wrench?
Well—
I always do that.
Stand by.
Okay.
I didn't think it was worth the trip downstairs because they were moving pretty good, but then when I had to get to the tightening phase, I was like, it says wait to tighten, and so I waited to tighten until I got the whole thing together, and I tightened it together, then I get the lid out, and I put the lid on there, and let me tell you, there's a thought in the back of my head right as soon as I opened this thing, and I was like, these two sides are identical, and it doesn't say there's a difference, but I have a feeling I'm gonna put this whole thing together, and I'm gonna have done it wrong because I have a tendency to do these things.
But that didn't happen.
I get the lid to the assembly point, I screw the lid on, and the last thing I have to do is take the little hydraulic little things that keep the lid up when you open it, and I move it down, I pull them down to
attach
them to the hole that is supposed to be right where I've pulled them down to, and then I look across the sports bin, rather large sports bin, but I can see the other side. The other side of the sports bin has the hole, which means that the sides need to be completely reversed, which means I had to take the whole thing apart. Now, at this point, I was like, I wonder if I have a drill bit, like a star drill bit that will fit this particular Allen wrench. And
you didn't explode at that moment before?
No, you know what? I was very upset, but I was like, I'm going to calmly go downstairs and see if I can find a bit for this. And I did have a star bit that perfectly fit it.
Okay, because that seems like a count to audible 10 moment.
But it was a 30-minute setback, even with the new tools. But let me tell you right now, the sports bin has been put together. There are 3 basketballs in there. There's a leaf blower.
In there?
In there. There's so many things ready to go. And
I'm just proud of you that you didn't explode. Like I probably would have taken every sports thing that I had and whooped the tar out of that sports bin, because that stuff just boils my blood.
I was very upset about it just based on the fact that
because it's your fault, and there's no one there to blame.
I blamed the instructions.
Oh gosh.
I always blame the instructions because who else is there to blame?
And how did they take it?
They did not respond. They just blew away in the wind. But I will say that if I were to write the instructions for this particular sports bin,
yeah,
I would say, hey buddy, make sure you do this side on this side, because they did it. I read them again, there was no indication. What you had to do is you had to look through all the steps, look at the last step, see where it was supposed to attach, and then reverse engineer, go back to the first step and know where to put it. And that's asking too much of me. I'm just a dad who hasn't put together a sports bin in years, you know? Should have got somebody to do it. Lesson learned, won't do it again. I'm going back to being non-handy.
Well, you're about to have a lot more time on your hands. A lot of time to potentially put together sports bins or whatever else we're gonna do, because I don't know if you heard, but days are gonna start to be 36 hours now.
I heard about this.
At least in our mental exercise that we're about to have.
But first, we wanna let you know that you could pick up this wonderful, softest sweatshirt I've ever put on. Let me just tell you that right now. I absolutely love the softness of this.
Soft on the outside, soft on the inside.
If you don't like hard sweatshirts, hard crusty sweatshirts, then you'll love this army green Good Mythical Morning sweatshirt, available at mythical.store. I'm so cozy right now.
Along with other stuff. Rep your mythicalness, mythical.store.
The reason we're talking about this is because we got a reply on Twitter from Crystal Melody. Right now I am thinking what the world would be like if days were changed to 36 hours long instead of just 24 hours. I'd probably still procrastinate, is what she said. Thank you for that question, Crystal. That has sparked some thoughts in our minds.
So I'm curious, listener, at this point, are you experiencing an avalanche of things that you would do, ways that you would occupy your life, ways that you would change your life if every single day from here on out, it was 50% longer? You had 12 more hours, if I'm doing the math right. Allow me to wrestle with that, because my first response is just—
Allow me to wrestle with that.
Oh my gosh, like, it's not like, yes, finally. It's like trepidation. So now now I have more time to figure things out. Well, maybe I'll just,
that says a lot about you.
Yeah, it does.
I approach this from a very different standpoint.
So my like knee-jerk gut reaction is just sleep the rest of it. Oh gosh, don't try to figure anything out.
Well, okay, from a scientific standpoint, just to get this out of the way, because I don't want to talk about this too long.
But I am interested in this too, yeah.
You would sleep significantly longer.
Well, hold on, I want to go even more scientific, like the geology of the Earth.
Well,
the Earth itself would be big, right?
I'm getting to that. Well, it doesn't, the size of the Earth.
It would rotate.
It is relative.
Well, it would have to rotate slower.
Right, but you know that the length of the day is based on the time that it takes for the Earth to completely rotate one time on its axis. And that time is actually getting slower with every year that passes. I don't know what the exact fraction is. It's like 1/75 thousandths of a second or something like that. But it's enough. And what's happening is the moon is actually causing, the moon is moving away slowly, which is causing the Earth to slow down over time.
Hearing that makes me sad. I don't know exactly why.
Well, what this means is actually days, I think, again, don't quote me on the math, but like 1 billion years ago, so like before there was any people, way before there was any people, days were like hours different in length. Like they were hours shorter because the Earth is slowing down, so therefore the days are getting longer. So I think it's like 5 hours longer or something like that 1 billion years ago. You can look up the specifics, but
wow.
It's pretty crazy that what we are, and first of all, life on Earth evolves in the context of the length of the day and the night, and basically everything about our life cycle and also the length of the year, and we've kind of talked about that before. But you sleep approximately the amount of time that it's dark, give or take. But that, on a planet out there where the day is a different length, which planets even within our solar system, the days are different length. If a life form evolves on that planet, your sleep cycle would be relative to where you're at. So yes, if it was 36 hours and let's say if right now it's 24 hours, you sleep 8 hours. So 36 hours, you'd probably sleep 12 hours. You'd sleep a third of the time. So 4 additional hours would be you sleeping. And
it's biologically you would have evolved in that way.
But you still have
you actually need
extra hours.
You wouldn't be a lazy slog. That would just be how you evolved.
Right, but
so I don't feel that bad about it.
And also our capacity for anything that we would do during the day would be relative, and we would fill the time based on economic factors and all that stuff, and the length of the workday, and our capacity for it would be relative. So I don't actually want to think about that because that's just basically stretching something to scale and filling it with the same amount of time. Mm-hmm. The more interesting exercise is to say, what if all of a sudden you and me, all of us had 12 extra hours during the day that we would not be tired? And I think for me, as a rule, I'm going to say, I'm not just gonna fill it with more work. I'm saying that like I would work the same amount that I do now, and I would sleep the same amount that I do now, but I've got 12 completely extra hours. What would I do with them?
But just to camp out on that for a second, I am curious if, yes, we snapped our fingers and then all of us experienced this extra daylight that could be working hours. Would something about competition, it's easy to speak about our jobs, but maybe we can extrapolate. Is there something about competition that you would just fill it with more work because, well, you're not tired and you can get more productivity and you can be more competitive and you can make more money, or you can chase that devil. Chase that devil of possessions and fleeting happiness and what you can buy or conquer. Or powerfy.
I mean, I think that this is the case all over the world. Americans are probably one of the best examples of people who have just filled their time with as much trying to get ahead as they possibly can. And I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying it is a fact. There are other cultures who have said, you know what, we're gonna work 4 days, or we're going to work 6-hour days, or we're gonna work 5-hour days.
Right.
But we've pushed ourselves to the limit, and so we're kind of up against this wall, and this is how I feel. And this is why this question intrigued me so much, is because even just recently, and again, I'm not trying to do the whiny thing about, I'm so busy. I can't stand when people say how busy they are, and I end up doing it all the time. So I'm not talking about how busy I am. I'm just talking about the fact that I have fallen into the trap of sort of the American dream and doing something I love to do, doing this job we get to do, we're living the dream, we're getting to do exactly what we wanna do. But I have, like that moment that I had last night when I was sitting there incorrectly putting together the sports bin one of the reasons it was so frustrating is because I was like, I don't have this time.
You need to be
I
doing
don't
something
have
different.
half an hour at night to sit around and incorrectly put together a sports bin. I didn't have time to put together the sports bin to begin with because I'm at home and I would actually like to be spending the time with my family or enjoying a television program with my wife. You know what I'm saying?
But instead you build it twice.
Exactly. Because I've already filled my time with.
You should have called me. I would have gladly come over and helped you build it, but probably not. I'm glad you didn't call me.
You know what? I tried to get you to help me put the basketball goal up. So remember we had that party at my house?
There were other friends there and some of them were taller than me.
Yeah, well no, so I bought this new basketball goal because the old one was too rusty.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And I was like, I looked at the package and it said, definitely do not try this without 2 people. And I was like, oh, okay, crap. And so I was having a party in my house, and when you guys got over there, everybody's kind of like hanging out around the basketball goal. I was like, hey guys, I got a new one. You wanna help me put it up? It was like a barn raising.
Yeah, that's my idea of a party.
But you guys did not.
Hey, come to my party. Oh.
You guys did not respond like the Mennonites. Let me tell you right now, you were not helpful. So
a couple of them were. It got up.
It didn't end up working because, anyway, you know what happened? The next day, I did it by myself with a 6-foot step ladder and a broom. And I was doing all this thing. I was propping things. No,
I thought that Nick and Joseph helped you put it up.
They couldn't, we didn't do it.
Oh.
It didn't work.
Well, I didn't know that.
I ended up doing it myself and I almost died.
But
thanks a lot.
So do you have a definitive answer about, did something immediately pop into your head, or was it like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for, 12 more hours? Well, or we're talking about 4 more hours of daylight, that's what we're calling it?
No, I'm saying 12 more hours, because I'm saying I'm sleeping the same amount.
Okay.
I don't have definitive answers of what I would do, but okay. So I've plugged Josh Sundquist, a friend of ours, a number of times, and he made that video where he talked about the germ method, JERM, the things that he wants to do every single day. He wants to write in his journal, he wants to exercise, he wants to read, and he wants to meditate. In addition to all the other things that he's gonna do. And I was just like, that's great, because those are the things that I like to fill my time with if I'm able to, right? Both of us have we've gotten into meditation on we're like meditation light. Like
I flirt with it.
We have an app, like we're the guys with the app and have been known to like, Dad's out next to the pool sitting crisscross applesauce. What's he doing out there? Everybody, you might have a similar experience, but it's not like you're a daily meditator, nor am I.
Oh no.
I have a journal, it's my Evernote. I go in and I write ideas and I write things that are happening in my life, but I do it how often? A couple of days a month maximum, right? I do exercise a few times a week, not every single day, and I end up reading, but the vast majority of what I read is just the internet, man. It's not sitting down with a book. That usually happens on vacation, when I've got time off, when I kind of sit down and get into a book. So I don't do those things. So the first thing that I thought is I was like, okay, I would actually do those things. And when you talk about exercising, I know you go to the gym, I go to the gym.
Different
gyms, what we call it, dead at the same gym.
One gym is like for studs, the other gym is for like tall guys with beards.
Yeah, I go to an exclusively tall guys with beards gym. We're all incredibly buff.
I was really trying to emphasize the stud part and then try to be very clear who I was talking about.
Well, I used to go to your gym and I'm not gonna say anything about it. Studs is not how I would describe the clientele, but it's cool. It's cool. I'm glad you feel that way.
Look at me, man.
And so one of the things, I thought about the way that I approach my time at the gym. Again, my time at the gym is like incredibly scheduled, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna go, I've got this class.
So if you had more time, you would just go hang out at the gym?
Well, okay, yeah, stay with me here, because in my gym, I know the Studs gym, they don't have like a locker room and a steam room, and you don't get a eucalyptus towel and when you get done with your workout. I mean, at my gym, those are the kinds of things that we have.
Oh, you talking about the gym where people who have putting greens at their home go to. Okay,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I have sort of made this decision that when I get done with my workout, I'm going to, if I have time, I'm gonna go and spend like 10 minutes in the steam room because I just love that feeling. There's other people in there and they are having conversations, but I've kind of opted out of the whole gym friend thing, right? And then I go back to my locker, I'm gonna take a shower, then I go to my locker and I'm changing clothes. And there's like a couple of people who I have on a very surface level, just they're an acquaintance and they maybe asked me about, like one guy was like, where'd you get those shoes one time? And I told him, and because he's the where did you get those shoes guy, now if I get a locker next to him, I'm like, what's up, man? And then he'll ask a question, I'll answer it, but then not ask another question because I don't want a gym friend. You know what I'm saying? Because I gotta get out of there. This is about getting in there. This is about working out a little bit, getting some steam, and then going on about my business. But one of the things I was thinking about is if I had more time, I might develop a gym friend. Like what if I were to ask, where'd you get those shoes from, guy? Another question. Like, well, where'd you get those shoes from?
Oh, now we're getting somewhere. So with 12 more hours in the day, you would ask a follow-up question about a dude's shoes in the gym.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You would turn the gym into like a social zone.
No, that might be overstating it. What I'm saying is that I have made a conscious/unconscious decision to minimize conversation and relationship at the gym because I see it as this little window of time which I gotta get out and get here.
Yeah.
To take care of business. I don't have time. And I can, okay, I'm sure you have an equivalent experience because I know you're working out with people who don't necessarily have to be somewhere right after they finish working out.
I actually left, my class wasn't over today and I had to leave and the instructor was like, where are you going? I was like, I gotta take my son to school and I gotta leave right now in order to do that so I can get here for my call time. And you know, I feel like every second of my day is scheduled. Absolutely. And yeah, I just, you know, I have this problem in my brain that I feel like, okay, if I'm not efficiently using every second of my day, I'm just not doing the right thing. You know, I'm not aspiring to perfection. And it's, you know, that's very unhealthy. You know, to not allow space for surprise and experience and relationship and
but how could you change
learning
that?
About shoes?
But I mean,
well,
I don't think I could change that without the extra time. And in this case, 12 hours. So I might have a 1 hour conversation just about shoes with a half naked man at a gym. That's the kind of thing that would start happening in my life, and who knows where that would lead.
Well, when you talked about the meditation thing, it's interesting that you started there. I think our minds are in a similar place because that is one of the first things I thought of when I moved past anxiety. And again, that's where the way that my brain works, something so positive as extra time, which is basically free unstructured time, is seen impulsively as a negative because I don't yet know the perfect plan.
You're intimidated by the work you have to do in order to fill the time?
Well, to know what the right answer is. And again, that's the problem. But
with 12 hours, you can get things wrong. The question about the shoes with a half-naked man is an example of just making a point. Wasting time.
That's how my brain works, and at least I'm aware of that.
We're not talking about an extra hour, 12 extra hours.
It's a lot of hours. So then my first answer is, I think for at least, and I would probably make up my mind at the front end of this once I realize, wow, Earth is rotating slower. I have approximately 12 hours every day. That I was going to spend X amount of hours every day for 6 months in silent solitude.
How much time?
X amount of time. I don't know what that number is.
Every single day?
Every single day.
Well, yeah.
For like, I think 2 hours a day for 6 months.
Why just 6 months? Once you do it for 6 months, it's just part of your routine.
I don't know what would come of it. Like I'm so far from knowing what that would do. that would be a form of meditation, or many different forms, I don't know.
Well, let's
meditation, reflection.
Let's talk.
And then I think I might move on to something else, or decide to do something, or maybe I would have come to the conclusion by that point. I need to set an end goal. I need to set a goal, but then perhaps I will have reached the conclusion by then that like I need to increase that number. I don't know.
Well, I want to talk.
That's probably how
about meditation.
That's how I would approach it.
I want to talk about meditation because we both again have flirted with it, and again, let me tell you. One of the things about being small town boys from North Carolina who moved to California is we're able to hear through the lens of small town boys from North Carolina when people from California talk. So again, that's why we qualify things with douche qualifiers. And I understand that a lot of people, as soon as they hear things like they're talking about meditation, what happened to these guys, I acknowledge that there's this tendency to be like, what are you guys talking about? Frou meditation? But meditation is an incredibly old concept that exists across many different traditions and has been, it's unequivocal, it's completely scientific, the benefits that you can get from it. But I gotta say, it's very difficult to do and to be good at it and to benefit from it. And I think the average American, and I consider myself the average American, when you first kind of try it, you're like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean sit here and focus on my breath? What are you talking about? And I can't do that. I'm thinking about 55 different things at the same time. And I know while we're different, we're also very similar in the way we approach things like that and the way we approach that kind of time. And I think the way that we would struggle with it when we sit down to try to go through it. But what I have found, and I think the longest that I've ever like sat down and meditated, and again, this is like a guided meditation. So you've got somebody in your ears kind of talking you through it. It's probably like 45 minutes. And again, that's not just one thing the entire time. That's somebody saying, okay, now think about this or focus on this. But anyway, it has this incredibly calming effect, and very rarely are you gonna meet somebody who practices meditation on a regular basis for long periods of time who's just an asshole. Like
on his,
you know what I'm saying?
On as much edge as I am.
Yeah, there's a reason that the people who are able to spend, I mean, there's some people who spend hours a day and you may be like, that's crazy, what a waste of time. But the level of peace that those people have in their lives and the level of peace that they're able to impart to the people that they interact with, let me tell you right now, my wife and children would love for me to spend more time in peaceful meditation. Because the net effect would be that I would be a more peaceful and meditative person when I wasn't having a direct peaceful meditation. So for me, that the idea of being able to do that, and first of all, if you're interested in it, Headspace is not a sponsor. Hopefully will be at some point. They've got a great app for kind of getting you
an introduction.
Yeah, into and there's other apps as well, but Headspace has been good in terms of guided meditation. But that, for me, that's a big one. I feel like the very first thing I would do is I would like find like, I have a comfortable place, meditation cushion, you know, the right environment, and I would actually spend an extended amount of time in meditation every single day to begin with.
Yeah, and this is a great question because it's a daily habit question. It's not like, because I started thinking, well, I'm gonna take a trip or I'm gonna walk the earth. Well, no, I've got 12 hours a day. I've got responsibilities. I've got loved ones and interactions and a career and even friends. But it's not,
even friends.
So it's not the type of thing that it's like, okay, what becomes a new party of my life? I also have thought specifically about having more time with the kids. It's like being a part of their life. You know, it's something that Christy and Jesse, like they were homeschooling. They were so much, arguably the center of our kids' lives, you know, and they're older now, they're in school, but you know, who picks them up most of the time? Who's there the moment they come out of school and like whatever happened that day, they're the ones that they experience that. By the time I get home, you know, Christy's just telling me what they dumped on her that they don't have the energy to explain to me again. It's like, well, I told one parent, isn't that good enough? Like, can't you guys just communicate? Like, and I totally relate to that. Like, when something happens to me at work or something good, bad, and different, it's not like I want to tell the exact same story to every family member, even though I love each of them and I want to share my lives with them. So that's something I've been thinking about and talking to Christy about is, you know, the times where I do hear, this is what happened today that you missed, or just appreciating the sheer volume of time that they spend together that I don't get to. I'm like, wow, they're gonna be gone before I know it, you know? And if all of a sudden I had that much more time, I think I'd very quickly be shifting my schedule and saying, okay, when more of their waking hours, let's have an overlap so we can hang out so that, you know, our lives overlap more than me just getting home for dinner and then for the weekends.
I think there would be, and first of all, not to get to the end of this, but I already have in my mind where this conversation is going to lead and to what the application is. And I think it's pretty interesting exercise. But I think that what would inevitably happen is if you're a family person, is that you would end up having, there'd be family time. It might be like the family hour or something. You would end up naturally spending time. You spend more time with your spouse. Like the way that our time is divided up, and this is probably true of many different couples, but like, you know, if you're married with kids, how often do you go on a date? Some people are really disciplined about this and they have like a weekly date night. That's something that I know both of us have had at times, but never for too long, because if you don't keep it super consistent, you just don't end up doing it. And so I think that having something like that on a daily basis, it would be so much easier to have that on a regular basis with this extra time. You'd end up having this, I'm gonna have a purposeful connection. And this is interesting, like, cause in my relationship with my wife, she is much more likely to be the one to want to initiate, like, let's have a conversation that is solely intended for us to connect, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not that I don't want to talk about that and talk about our relationship. It's just, I kind of gravitate towards like, if I'm gonna talk to you, I'm gonna talk to you about something that happened at work or some idea that we're working on or whatever. And then she's like, but let's have a conversation about us, or let's have a conversation where the purpose of the conversation is not to communicate information or to solve a problem. It is legitimately to connect with one another, mm-hmm. with one another. And that doesn't end up happening nearly as much as I would like it to, and especially as she would like it to, right? And the same thing with kids. It's like, the same, you feel like, oh, I'm gonna sit down at dinner, and I do usually eat dinner with the kids. We all sit down and eat dinner together when we can, which is multiple times a week, every week. And I'll be like, tell me about school. And you know the answers you get to that question.
Right.
Nothing, so you have to find like a more specific question where like, was there something good that happened? Was there something bad that happened? Did you make a new friend? Did you lose a friend? What, like, you try to find ways to get your kids to talk to you. And like you said, well, they've kind of talked to mom about that when she picked them up from school. And so I definitely think that the relationships with your immediate family would be something that would fill that gap. Mm-hmm. But another thing is relationships with friends. Now, we've got some great friends, and we, in a lot of ways, share a friend group that we end up hanging out with on a regular basis. And in a very unusual, sort of non-2018, non-Los Angeles way, we actually found a way to connect with our friends on a regular basis because we schedule time together. Like, we've actually regularly scheduled times for us to get together and hang out, right. Which is like been an incredible thing. I know for both of us and for others in the group. It's just been great to be able to have a group of friends that you can hang out with on a regular basis and actually get into each other's lives and
it's a standing appointment.
Learn about each other and kind of get through life together. That's been something that's been so beneficial and so great. But still, it's scheduled and it's like at best weekly. And then, you know, I do my monthly game night that you and Christy are a part of that is like a bigger circle of people, like 25 people if they all come, and they never all come. Which is I love that. I instituted that time, and I told Jesse last year, I was like, I want to do a game night because A, I'm super competitive and I love to play games, and B, I have this like group of friends from all over the city that I know from different parts of my life, and I think they would be super fun to bring together into an environment, and I just wanna hang out with them on a regular basis. And in Los Angeles, monthly is a regular basis to see somebody. That's seeing somebody a lot. But I think that if I had 12 hours, and everybody had 12 hours, some sort of like connection with friends. Again, you can't fill it with more work. Nobody's filling it with more work. Nobody's sleeping more. You'd end up spending more time with friends. You'd end up filling that time with relationships. Maybe the guy who likes my shoes at the gym, but hopefully just the people I want to connect with already.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it still comes down to scheduling. Like I think that anything worth prioritizing, I don't know if this is just me or from the experience you just described, but I feel like even things that are very important to me, if I don't schedule them, they don't happen. I mean, you talk about the date night that we each have with our wives, and like.
Do you currently have a scheduled date night?
No, but like we're almost about to get that going again, right, because it involves childcare and like figuring that out. So having someone that you've said, all right, I'm gonna pay you to free me up to be able to do this, you know? So we got those logistics figured out. But it drifts, you know, like life happens and things shift, and all of a sudden something that you're so excited about and that you totally want to prioritize still doesn't happen. So what I'm getting at is even when you have all this time, I think it still has to be scheduled, and I think I would even have to schedule just the surprise time, just to go with the flow and talk about shoes time.
Schedule surprise time?
Yeah, just
schedule
like
spontaneity.
Scheduled spontaneity. And it's like, what's gonna happen now? Because
it sounds like a t-shirt you should wear. I schedule spontaneity. You know what? There's probably a lot of people who would buy that. Write that down.
Well, I know for me,
I've got an appointment for spontaneity.
It sounds funny, but I think I need that. Maybe that's not for everybody. It's probably not, but I know that's how it works for me. And I'm so far from being able to afford to just have scheduled spontaneity where it's like no plans, whatever happens, happens. Whatever I feel like at this moment, like I can do that. Like I don't know how that works.
That makes me think of, and I don't remember who this was, so where no one's gonna get in trouble. Somebody who knew about another content creator's schedule was talking to us about what they were doing and like trying to schedule something for them or with them or something like that. And they like literally sent them their calendar, and every single day had a huge chunk, like at least 4 hours, maybe 6 hours on some days. And the chunk was labeled unstructured creative time every single day. And we heard about that and we were like, I mean, like, what would that be like?
Like to say, you know what?
Unstructured creative time?
You know what I'm gonna do?
Wow.
I'm gonna go to a museum. I'm just gonna walk around. And I might invite a friend or a loved one or, you know, family member, or just go by myself. You know, it's like, there's so much of that here, but I haven't done that. I think, you know, this is my corollary. Do you really have to have, if that's the case that everything needs to be scheduled, and maybe this is just for me, even if I had 12 more hours in a day, well, isn't there a way for that to happen now? You know, like, isn't there some of the spirit of what we're talking about that can be applied to our actual real lives? And so you have an idea where you want to go, and
well,
so maybe
that was it. I think that was the
that
was the inevitable conclusion of our conversation. But
I do think that's it.
I have a step along the way to get to that because one of the things I think we're talking about, because we could talk forever about what we would do at 12 extra hours. I mean, I would read a lot because I love to read. I would write in a journal, like a journalistic, like self-discovery sort of way. I think I would spend time just sitting there thinking. I would have unstructured creative time that was not necessarily geared towards contributing something to our business. But like, there's a whole slew of things that I would love to create that would not be beneficial to us, as an example. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's like, if I told you that I wanted to go and paint, you'd be like, how do we sell your paintings at mythical.store? And I'd be like, well, that's not, I just want to paint. I can't get to a place where I just paint.
You could call it bad paintings.
And but
sell it.
Of course I've thought about painting. I've walked through craft stores and seen the painting section and gotten this close 12 times to buying a canvas and all the stuff because I thought I might paint. Now I haven't done that for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is because, well, there's a whole list of creative things that I want to do that are part of what we're doing in Mythical Entertainment that we haven't gotten to, let alone the things that I just want to do just creatively, let alone the things I just want to think about. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and let alone, there's, with that much time, you have so much more capacity to do good. You know, it sounds like an obligatory addition.
You had to bring that up?
But I mean, it is
charitable
true.
Works.
And it's one of those things that I think that once you allow yourself to serve, you gain so much more from it. So I believe that service has a selfish component that's justified, that like it's good for everybody. Think about culturally, if people who were at a loss with what to do with themselves were more mobilized to serve together. So I'm even building from just one person, like from me, like volunteering, to a culture of, well, we can't work. Let's not sit on our bums and fight depression. Let's get active.
Yeah.
And serve. That's an exciting thought. That
what we could accomplish.
I mean, if we just slow the rotation down a little bit, all of a sudden we got all this service blossoming. That would be amazing. Of course, I don't know what other scientific repercussions there would be that would make this whole thing careen off of orbit.
Like I said, if it continues to happen at a slow pace that it is happening, we're just gonna continue to fill it with the same BS that we already fill our lives with. But we're gonna continue on the same hamster wheel. But
and it's hard to even have space to say, how can I engage my heart and my passions in something that is outward focused and that is not even about the exciting aspect of expression, which, by the way, all those things could come together. You know, your bad paintings could I don't know, somehow be in result in a lot of good.
I don't understand how that would happen.
Socially, that you'd have time to figure it out.
Okay, so one of the things that I think we've been flirting with as well is we're having this conversation. You've heard me talk about this a lot because I've gotten it from other people, but you know, we're essentially Stone Age software running on modern day hardware. Stone Age hardware running modern day software, meaning that we have the bodies and the brains and the capabilities of people who did not have anything to do with the modern society that we have now, but we're pushing ourselves through this. But these bodies that we have for most of existence, human existence, you know, you go back to hunter-gatherer days and they actually, you know, they were in small groups of people, about 150 or so or less, and they had meaningful relationships with not only their immediate family, but the people who they were in a tribe with. And yes, they spent a lot of time gathering food because when you're gathering and hunting, you're spending a lot of time gathering and hunting. But it was pretty much taking the time to survive. They spent most of their time surviving, but they relied on one another. They spent lots of time talking to one another, doing good for one another. They spent a lot of time killing each other. I'm not trying to paint this, speaking of painting a picture, yes, they killed each other in droves. Humans have always done that. But the time was structured so much differently than our time now that we are in this capitalistic modern society where we're constantly just pushing ourselves to create and produce and make the pie bigger and bigger, and the population is growing and all the things that contribute to modern society and the hamster wheel that we're in. That didn't exist because you basically lived a life where you did exactly the same thing that your mom and dad did, that their mom and dad did, that their mom and dad did, that their mom and dad did. It was the same technology, it was the same goals for generation after generation after generation after generation, because technology changed so slowly. There would be like one invention in like 100 generations. I mean, it was crazy how slow things moved for so long. And even though the days were a little bit shorter back then, not much, a few seconds probably, or a few minutes, life was a lot different. And I think that a lot of these things that we're talking about, like self-reflection, like sitting there and thinking, or spending time with your family. You didn't sit, hunter-gatherer people weren't like, man, I need to spend more time with my family. They were probably more like, I need to get away from these people. They're the only people I see all the time. So I think that's part of our problem, is that we haven't changed biologically, but we're trying to adapt to this environment, and it's resulting in people getting incredibly stressed out, depressed, getting all kinds of diseases, being sleep deprived, all the things that happen. But I was exactly on the same page that you were, what you said a second ago, which is, if the first things that we talk about when we say that we would have extra time is, well, I would meditate every day, I would read every day, I would spend more time getting to know people, I'd spend more time with my family, I'd spend more time with my friends, I'd spend more time just thinking, I'd spend more time creatively pursuing things that fulfill me. Well, we're not gonna get those 12 hours, but we have the power, you have the power to make decisions that introduce those things into your life on a regular basis. It will not come without sacrifice. And I think the question is like, well, what are you willing to let go of?
You have an answer?
Link, I think I have to quit. I think I gotta stop doing ear biscuits, because this is time I could be spending with my family. Oh gosh, did he just say that? No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna give this up. I'm not gonna stop making that internet show that we make. Of course I'm not gonna do that.
Well, the thing that we don't like to do on this podcast is be prescriptive, because maybe it's obvious over the course of this conversation that we didn't know where it was going. We did not talk about it ahead of time, much less say this is the point we're trying to make for you. I could say, well, you're a student, or you're working a 9 to 5, or you're working a lot more than that, or you have these demands or these needs or these problems and these restrictions on your life. You don't have the luxury to say, well, I would just like to read more, so I'm gonna make an adjustment. We're not trying to read your mind and be prescriptive to your situation. We're just verbally processing ours, which, I mean, we are in a I'm very grateful for we're extremely fortunate for the position that we're in, that we run a business, and we're creative, and we're things that we said before, we're living our dream, engaging our passions, and doing by and large what we want to do. And then when it gets down to the nitty gritty of it, sometimes it doesn't feel like that. A lot of times it doesn't feel like that. It feels like an obligation that it seems like it's external forces, even though it's something that we have set up and that we're ultimately in charge of. But once you set this thing in motion, it doesn't feel that much different than just something that's like
somebody else is in control.
Someone else is in control. And I think it's
our wives remind us of that all the time. You're the boss. You can take the day off. No.
Yeah, and then we're like, well, you don't understand. And it's like, well, I don't think maybe we don't understand.
Well, but I agree with your point because we say it in a very privileged, naive position in a lot of ways. You know, we met a guy on this recent little mini tour who was a truck driver. And it was like I listen to Ear Biscuits while I'm driving.
Mm-hmm.
Met a guy who's a postal worker. It was like I listened to Ear Biscuits on my route. Thank you for Ear Biscuits because it fills this time. And I think people who are doing, some people are working 12 hours a day, maybe more, to provide for some people, and they don't have the luxury in order to continue to pay to live, to pay to eat. They have to continue working an incredible amount of hours. I mean, that is the situation that a lot of people find themselves in. So they're not able to say, I'd like some unstructured creative time because, well, if I get unstructured creative time, somebody's not going to eat. We're not in that situation, and we recognize that a lot of people are. So I think that really just highlights a deeper problem with our society. And I don't claim to be an socioeconomic expert. I don't understand. I have lots of different opinions about stuff and how it should work, but ultimately, I don't know what the solutions are. But I know for a fact we've gotten ourselves into a situation where people are doing things and we've developed habits and we've made certain we've created obligations as a species which are not healthy. And if you have the option to kind of step off of that hamster wheel and actually begin to kind of chip away at some of the things that you think you're responsible for. I was talking to my therapist about this. Like when we talked about meditation, I was like, I just want to make it a part of every single day. And he was just like, you just have to make the decision that it's not negotiable. But I'm still living in this world where it's so easily negotiated away because I can sleep a little bit longer, and I can justify saying I need to sleep a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the process of chipping away and getting some of that time back, besides actually making the earth slow down, which I think is going to be very difficult for us to figure out. It's probably going to take more time than we have to figure that out. We've got the time. We've got 24 hours in a day. We have to be intentional in some way to get some time back.
But today's 24 we'll never get back, Rhett.
Nope.
Well, thanks for hearing us out.
Yeah, good luck with that. Is a great mug to have on the table because I think we've just highlighted a big problem in our species, in our society, in our own lives, and maybe your life, and just said, good luck with that. We don't really know what you should do. Maybe commiserating is the first step.
Let us know what you think or commiserate using hashtag #EarBiscuits. We can keep the conversation going amongst all of you as well as with us. And we will speak at you next week.
Yeah. Or maybe we won't.
I have an idea.
Maybe this is the last Ear Biscuit ever.
Let's take the last 10 minutes, for starters, of every podcast and just have a mindfulness meditation.
We're gonna have to press play on the app because we wouldn't know how to do that.
No, it'll just be silent.
Oh.
For the listeners and for us. But it would force us to do it. It's like, wow, we're monetizing our meditation. That's a beautiful thing.
What if we did that?
That's the spirit.
What if we did that before we started recording?
No, I want it to be part of the show.
What if we just played ads while we meditate?
I think what would happen is we would
10 minutes of ads. It's worth it because we're meditating.
We would just silently walk off. Well, there's a video version. I was gonna say we silently walk off and just run it for 10 more minutes, Kiko, and just say that we're here meditating. You can be there meditating. No.
Yeah. Okay.
So I could walk away like this.
You're basically just talking about creating a guided meditation. I mean.
Not guided, silent.
That exists. I mean, you're basically talking about creating nothing. It's just you're talking about creating the absence of something, which is not creating anything at all.
I'm talking about creating a 10-minute audio file of silence at the end of whatever conversation we had.
But what if instead of creating a 10-minute file of audio silence, you just said, sit there for 10 minutes after this is over?
Then we wouldn't sit here for 10 minutes. We would go off and work.
But we could, and just not record it.
Well, that's no fun.
Man, what a conundrum.
To watch more Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist on the right.
To watch the previous episode of Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist to the left.
And don't forget to click on the circular icon to subscribe.
If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for being your mythical best.